All right. This is our far left show, hanging out.
Yes,
What
hello,
is up?
hello.
What is up? How's everyone doing? Is that such a funny? I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's so funny to act like we're talking to people right now. Because we're just staring at a phone.
I know, we're just talking into a phone.
Yeah.
But if you're wondering how we've been, we're doing pretty good. Johnny started a new job. I started school, but we felt that it's been kind of hard to do the Far Left show a little bit lately because we felt so burnt out on politics a little bit, just with everything that's been going on. And I think electoral politics especially.
Yeah, especially Nina Turner's campaign in Ohio. That was a tough one because I know we were donating a lot. I just feel like she kind of got robbed by the Democratic Party. And I wish she was running again, but instead she goes and joins the Young Turks.
I know.
Which doesn't make any sense. I guess it does make sense if the goal or the rule in the United States is that the further you go, you are corrupted, like, regardless of who you are. You know?
Yeah, it's really tough. I feel like she sees it as an opportunity to have a platform to talk, but it's just kind of out of tune with how people feel about TYT, you know?
Well, she's doing it for the money, because maybe she needs the money because since she spoke her mind, they retaliated and now she has to do stuff like go on the Young Turks for money.
Of course!
So that's kind of an unfortunate one.
Yep.
So there's also a $1 trillion $1 trillion bill, and a $3.5 trillion bill in the Congress. And one is gonna pass probably, and the other will be lowered. And it's gonna be Joe Manchin who is gonna vote against it. And
it's so depressing. I don't know. Like, we're laughing, but I feel like it's because it's just so depressing and sad. I don't know what else to...
Too bad. What? You have an interview with a communist. He is actually doing something instead of rotting away and becoming a nihilist in the Imperial Core. His name is Steven Estrada, and he is running for the City Council of Long Beach. Your interview starts in 5 minutes.
But lady, how did you...
Right now. Go upstairs.
Johnny, let's go!
Yeah. Welcome to the Far Left Show, we break it down, zooming through political news in the lockdown, talking to people, solving issues. These are the kinds of views you won't see on your news. Stick around the show, cause things could get crazy. We even have chihuahuas named Dougie and Daisy. We're called the Far Left to scare the neoliberals, but interview candidates from primary to general. We're the Far Left, break it down. Come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues affecting this country. We're the Far Left, break it down. Come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues starting now.
All right, we're here with Steven Estrada. How's it going, Steven? How are you feeling today on this wonderful Friday evening?
I'm feeling great. You know, I put in a shift at work, got up at 7 a.m, sat through an hour of traffic on the way home. So I'm feeling great. But it's Friday. I'm excited to be on your show and get to talk to you both.
Awesome.
Sounds like a typical Friday in Southern California.
Exactly. This is half my life is in traffic.
Totally understand that.
So, Steven, what are you doing here? Why are you on our show? What are you running for? What's going on?
Yeah, so obviously my name is Steven Estrada. I'm 29 years old, and I am running for city council here in Long Beach, California, specifically District 1, which is on the west side. For those people who are unaware, Long Beach is a pretty big city. It's about the size of Atlanta or so. And my district is really big. It's 50,000 people. And you know, this district in particular has a history of just low voter turnout. People are kind of very disengaged from the electoral system here. And there's a reason for that, right? There's tremendous amounts of poverty here in my district. We have tremendous amounts of homelessness, gentrification occurring at an extremely rapid rate. And, I'm running because I want to be a part of the change here in our community. And running electorally is one aspect of a larger movement that I'm a part of. And specifically with my work with the Communist Party USA. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm attempting to engage in here coming the election in 2022.
Yeah, and I know you touched a little bit on your district in Long Beach, but can you talk a little bit more about the history of like city council in Long Beach, about the people who have gotten elected to city council historically, yeah, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So in District 1, it kind of has a reputation for being a stepping stone for something bigger, right? Some bigger political careers. The mayor here in Long Beach is Mayor Garcia, and he represented this district. And the reason they do that is kind of going back to my earlier response. It's such a low voter turnout, so it's such an easy way for career politicians to start their career. And an interesting story or anecdote about that in particular is our mayor, who is now a Democrat, and he's really buddy with Joe Biden, and he has aspirations for Senate. He was the founder of the Long Beach Republican, the Young Republicans. And he obviously you can't win being a Republican in Long Beach, so he switched and became a Democrat. So now he's a lifelong Democrat, and that's just kind of what you see coming out of the local politics here. It's a city machine that's at work, and ultimately the politicians that win and that really grow influence are those that are beholden to the real estate interests that contribute to their campaigns, as well as just they're slaves to the banks. And I think you see that borne out in the types of policies that they promote and the policies that they don't promote. So, this is what the run is about. It's about providing another option for the people of Long Beach that are interested in seeing a radical change in the city that they're in, and voting for somebody who has their interests and is willing to take on the interests of corporations and banks and things like that.
When you talk about them being slaves to the banks, right? I mean, who isn't a slave to the bank, honestly?
We're all slaves to the banks.
But are they getting like kickbacks from the banks? Are they unable to implement good policy for the working class due to the power of the banks? Or like from your perspective, what is going on there with the control of the banks? I mean, I know they're like, part of it is just they're too big to fail, right? They're integrated into our lives. Everything we do, obviously, like money makes the world go round. But yeah, well, how would you explain that kind of relationship a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I think that the relationship is inherent. I think you see it out in big cities all across the nation, right? If we're talking about neoliberalism in particular, the connection between the state and the functioning bodies of our society and capital. And ultimately, in Long Beach, one of the biggest issues that we have here is housing. And we see gentrification occurring precisely because the banks have been given too much influence and power and decision-making power in terms of what gets built here in our city. So the banks have worked their way, and not just the banks, but the real estate developers and very influential people that are beholden to the banks as well, have wormed their way into local politics. And so you see my opponent, who is the incumbent, she won in the last election cycle. I was going over her campaign contribution forms, and you get to see exactly who voted for her. And it's executive real estate developer, executive real estate developer, executive. So these people are bankrolling these people's political careers essentially through various ways. And even a couple of weeks ago, a local Long Beach paper called Fourth did some really good investigative journalism. and they found that a real estate developing company was given hundreds of thousands in the forms of tax subsidies that were promised that they said if they got this subsidy, they were going to build affordable housing for people here in Long Beach. And then turns out the housing that they built was the units were such a small percentage of the units were actually below market rate that essentially they just got a tax break for building luxury housing. And that's the kind of thing that you see. And I think that's inherent to neoliberalism as a whole. And Long Beach is no different.
I was learning about this a little while ago, which I think frustrates me. I know you're running for city council, but Sacramento is also this extremely frustrating, annoying institution in a lot of ways. They have this housing density bonus where if you build, like you were saying, they basically allow developers to build a certain amount. And they say, well, if you build this, like you have to build a percentage,
like a quota
mm-hmm. of low income housing. Then if you fit that quota, we'll give you a bonus of units that you can develop that aren't low income. So it's a thing where even in Sacramento, they're supporting policies where it's just a small amount of low income housing. I mean, ultimately, it's too much. Let's go to the next one.
I mean, just to, I definitely get your frustration, but just to kind of drive it down a little bit, that's a contradiction that's inherent to liberalism, right? I mean, liberalism is attempting to manage the contradiction, try to play referee between the landlords and the tenants, and ultimately what you see is that's an insolvable contradiction. One is always given the leverage and power in society, and it's ultimately about where you stand, and liberalism will never be able to resolve those contradictions. That's why I'm a Marxist.
Yeah, and actually that's a good segue into what I was going to ask you next is so obviously you are a communist and you're part of the CPUSA, which is why we're so excited to talk to you today. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and why it brought you to communism?
Yeah. I mean, I think I have a pretty interesting background, and I don't know if it's, well, I think it's actually pretty similar to a lot of communists. But I grew up in Southern California, mostly in the Riverside area. And my parents, my dad, he's been locked up for most of my life. So I know exactly, what it means to be subject to mass incarceration, racialized system that puts Black and brown men primarily disproportionately in prison. And my mom growing up, single mom, we relied on government assistance, food stamps, things like that. So from a very early age, I understood, the struggle. I wasn't always able to understand, the bigger picture. And I don't think it really came across until I joined the Army, and I was in the Army because I couldn't afford college. So this story isn't new. That there's millions of people in the U.S. where they bounce from struggle to struggle, and it just compounds. And so I was one of the people who, I think essentially was preyed upon by a system that forces poor people into war, into doing the work of the elite for them and dying for it. So, I joined the Army at a really young age. I was 19 when I joined. I deployed twice. And, after I left the military, I was really just interested in trying to get at the root of what it was that we were there for, why, some people that I knew died doing this. And that's when I came across the work of, people like Galliano talking about open veins and imperialism. It's when I came across Mike Prisner, who is a part of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, also a veteran. I've heard him speak, and when he spoke about war and about capitalism, it really spoke to me. And from there, it was just learning and reading, and then actually putting it into practice. I helped start an organization here in Long Beach. One of the first mutual aid organizations that was operating here, where we were, feeding people weekly and bi-weekly that were homeless and bringing attention to the situations here. So that's my story. I don't know if it's unique necessarily. I think it's it's an unfortunate reoccurrence in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank you for your service, and I think it's amazing how you went from that, military background into being a communist. I think that's a very, I think in that way, it's a very unique perspective, and also just the idea of, you mentioned like sort of like a mutual aid, right?
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, and I think this is a little bit of your policy platform. You mentioned unemployment councils. Could
Mhm.
you kind of describe what that would be?
Yeah, so the concept of an unemployment council, I mean, the concept itself it has its roots back to the USSR and the revolution that they had there. But it's something that's local as well. The CPUSA in its heyday, back in the Great Depression, helped build unemployment councils, especially in New York and some of the bigger cities that were really impacted by the Great Depression. And the concept is essentially organizing those that get left behind and are ground down into poverty and unemployment through these various crises that occur under capitalism, and mobilizing them as a political force, whether that is to advocate for rents, fighting back against rent hikes, evictions, talking about food security, all these different issues that affect unemployed people, is something that unemployment councils can actually be a huge part of mobilizing. And so that as an entity is something that I would like to see formalized in my district, because my district in particular has unemployment issues. We are the most impoverished district here in my city. We struggle with environmental. We have some of the worst air in the nation. So all of these things, they kind of all intersect, because unemployed people who are in poverty tend, those issues can be tackled with that vehicle. So that's something that I think would be really effective here in our city.
Yeah, I love the idea of just, it's basically unionizing unemployed people, which
Exactly.
is, it's really amazing, because I love unions, but I never thought of just unionizing. I mean, I thought of unionizing obviously tenants, but not
Mhm.
unemployed people, and I didn't know that it was part of the Soviet Union. It's funny. I think people still obviously talk about autocracy and stuff like that when it comes to the Soviet Union, but it literally was a union. I mean, this is what it was supposed to be, was a union of all the people, and like the workers, whether they, no matter what class they were in.
Mhm.
So I kind of, well, actually, did you have a
No,
question?
go
I didn't
ahead.
want but can you talk to us a little bit about the Soviet Union, and like maybe what are your kind of thoughts overall on the dialogue regarding the Soviet Union on the American left? I know that's a big question, but I just kind of wanted to toss it over to you since you mentioned him.
Yeah, I mean, the Soviet Union, I think, in my opinion, was um, the first project that was really, that its primary objective was to liberate the working class. That was the sole goal, and it really was the culmination of all this theoretical conversations and debate about what are these issues that are really impacting society and the people that live within them. And I think the Soviet Union was kind of this glorious experiment, that for the first time it really addressed materially what was at the root of all of these things, right? It addressed the fact that the bourgeois, or the feudal lords that were existing under that society, were oppressing the average person, whether it be the peasant or the proletarian family. And I think its effect has just enormous repercussions even today. I mean, if you look at the Afghanistan war, for instance, something happened decades after the revolution. That was fought because the US was trying to contain the influence of that revolution. And we see it here in Latin America. I mean, Latin America, the same thing. All these wars have been funded and fought with the funds and the resources of America, to fight back against the specter of communism in America's back door. Countless lives have been destroyed and taken away because America is trying to fight this notion of a free society that works for everybody. So I mean, I can't. It is an enormous question, and I can't say enough about the legacy of the Soviet Union. It's an inspiration to me personally and politically. But I am interested in crafting, a new era or a new understanding of what socialism will look here in the 21st century and here in America, because it's going to be different. It's not going to be an exact replication of the USSR, because Marxism is adaptable and applicable in all different kinds of situations.
Could I say one thought before tossing
ahead,
it to you? And this amazed me. I was looking at CNN, and it used to be more of a painful experience to read CNN. But lately, it's kind of interesting because I was reading something today where they said, we've lost more people in the United States than, any other pandemic throughout history. But also, we lost more people than all the wars America has been in combined, just all the major wars. And they said, you know why? It's because people are too individualistic and selfish and looking out for themselves. And they also give in to like right-wing misinformation. And it was just like, it was going down the line. And I was thinking, wow, that's pretty accurate. This is one of the first times I've read a CNN article, and I felt like, yeah, well, you're speaking truth. And it seems as if all the people in this country, I mean, at this point, we've all got to know there's a problem, right? I hope, I pray. There's some people you run into sometimes where you think, wow, you think everything's fine right now. It astounds me, but I feel like we're ready for communism. That's what I think. And that's why, we interviewed a bunch of progressives and people running in the Democratic Party, but I got kind of sick of it and I didn't want to do it again. Until I actually saw your Twitter and what you were running for Long Beach City Council. So I gotta thank you for bringing that inspiration back and really seizing the moment and doing what you're doing. So thank you. Just wanted to say
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I have the same sentiment. I've just felt so burnt out on electoral politics in like the last year, but. So I guess my question for you is what's your view on electoral politics? I mean, especially as someone who's running for city council, do you think electoral politics is a means to an end, or do you see running for office as like spreading awareness and educating people on communism, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a little bit of both. And I think it's always good as Marxists to be guided, not just by theory, but the actual historical application of these different theories. And I think Lenin specifically writes about, to what extent do revolutionaries engage with electoral politics? And I think, especially on spaces like Twitter and, space like that, there's tendency, I think, to just disregard electoral politics as kind of this useless tool, and that's all it is. It's a tool in the hands of bourgeois politicians that are still married to this concept that you can make capitalism fair and you can make capitalism equitable for all people. Electoralism is a dead end street, right? But for a communist who understands the limitations of bourgeois politics, who understands that for the most part, people as a whole still view the only way to change society is through electoral politics. You have to engage with it because that's where the masses still are. Now, they don't fully, they don't have the fullest confidence in the institutions themselves, but for the most part, people still believe that voting is the way forward. So we have to engage with them on that level of understanding, that level of political education that they're currently at. So we can't leave this arena of struggle as communists and as a communist party. So that's one reason why we engage. The second is, just as you said, to use the campaign as a vehicle to spread what exactly we as communists believe What is our platform? What are our policy proposals to fix these things? And maybe they don't vote for us in this election cycle, but they know a little bit more about socialism than they did before. And when the next crisis happens, as they inevitably do under capitalism, and we run again, maybe they're a little bit open to something new that they weren't before. So that's kind of what the concept is, engaging, and that's how I view electoralism. It's a tool, just like just like mutual aid is a tool. Just there are various ways to engage and push the masses forward. I was on a local radio station here on Long Beach, and I got to speak with their Univision radio hosts. And so going in, I knew they were going to be a little bit anti-socialist. They're going to bring up lies and slander about Cuba and Venezuela and different things like that. So I was prepared for it. But there's callers that called on and said, I voted for Trump, and just like he said, I'll repeat it here, there will never be socialism. There will be civil war before there will be socialism. But I knew that for every caller like that, right, for every person like that, there existed another person who maybe thought a little bit deeper about the things that I was saying about capitalism, who maybe questioned a little bit more than they previously did. And that's a win, in my opinion, because we're building towards something bigger.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of our idea with the show, was we just wanted to first grab the people who know us and will watch our videos, and just introduce them to this world that we've been watching take place for years. But there's a lot of people that live in, I think society is so sectioned off at this point. They're kind of atomized. And so sometimes you need to find a way, whether it's through, getting on a radio or the channel or YouTube or whatever, putting it out there and just making people think and discuss. And I think the electoral politics is a difficult arena to get into, because it can be very heartbreaking, but it's important. And I wanted to ask you, I always think about, I'm very obsessed with, I type China onto Google search every day and click news to see what's going on, and I'm really interested in the Belt and Road Initiative and the West's response to that. And we obviously see what appears to be, you can never say what's going to happen in the future, but a multipolar future. I wanted to ask, and this is all speculation, but I'm sure we all do it, but what do you see for our future, in not just politics, but maybe obviously that would involve climate and everything, but what do you see in the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioning China is important, because I think China is the next leader of socialism, essentially. And I think the way that they've approached this new multipolar world, as you said, is a lot different than what the USSR did. I think the USSR was very aggressive about funding and exporting revolution, and engaging directly, well, not directly, but through Cold War with the US, kind of toe-to-toe at times. And I think China has adapted and learned from what ultimately happened with the collapse of the USSR, was in part because it had to continually engage and invest in its military at extraordinary rates, whereas China is invested in supporting developing countries, right? In supporting the third world in a lot of different ways, by not exploiting them, by using these financial mechanisms like the World Bank or the IMF, and they've done it very effectively. So, in this new world, I think China will be the kind of the hegemonic global force, and I think with that we'll see a softening, or a warming up to socialism. I really do think that it's inevitable. Now that there is some urgency, as you said, because of the climate change issue, and the fact that we have such little time to do it. But I definitely have confidence that in the current path, I'm so inspired just by the victories, especially in places like Latin America. I don't know if you're familiar with all of the victories that socialists have been having here, but from AMLO in Mexico to Evo Morales coming back in after his coup, and Pedro Castillo in Peru. I'm just like, socialism is the future, and so I'm honored to be a part of the tradition and try to do my part here in the U.S.
Awesome. In that vein, I wanted to ask, are there any, I'm just gonna throw them all out there, book, music, movies, pieces of art, podcasts, anything you'd recommend to us and the people watching this?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, books, like I start with books, I guess. I mean, Galliano, I'm sure I don't know if you've read it, but it's a very popular one. Open Veins was kind of the one that really radicalized me, and I keep coming back to time after time. So if anybody's interested in radical politics, I think that's a great place to start. It kind of gives you the history and a little bit of breakdown just into some theory, but as well, Pedagogy of the Oppressed is one of my favorite, just because it teaches you just so much. I mean, it's just it's a beautiful book with just so much insight. So I think that for books. Let's see, podcasts. I'm a huge podcast consumer. I honestly, but for podcasts, I try to stay away from politics. I try to keep it like low key because everybody needs a break, from politics. This is kind of like a what is it called? Like when it's not good for you, true crime. Like I know it's not good for you. I listen to way too much true crime.
Me too. It makes me paranoid, like more paranoid than I already am.
Yeah, exactly. Music. I mean, I'm a big rap. Like I like '90s hip hop. I don't know. You seem about my age, but the '90s hip hop was my thing. I grew up on Tupac, on Wu-Tang Clan, all that. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the extent of it.
Yeah, well, we love all that stuff. We've read both those books, and I'm a huge hip hop fan too. So awesome. Do you play Fortnite at all?
I don't. My daughter does. My daughter loves Fortnite.
Oh,
I have a daughter. She's 6 years old, and she's into games. She's a gamer. She's a gamer, man. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah. We play some Fortnite. Yeah, it's fun. It's like, it's so interesting because it's like capitalism, just like
in your face,
like glittering, like beautiful, but taking all these brands, kind of like the new Space Jam, just like throwing every brand that they can throw at
relevant,
you. It's really cool, but it's just late stage capitalism is so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that they had the MLK speech so you can visit in Fortnite.
Yeah.
Did you visit? Did you go there?
I did. Okay. So I went, and I made my character sit down, and another character ran up to me and started teabagging me. I don't know. Gosh. Yeah. So it just didn't make any sense.
I did not think that one through.
It was totally disrespectful. So I had to leave. But
oh God. Yeah, it was never a good idea.
No, did not think it through at all. Nope.
But where can people find you if they want to hate on communism or support you or do whatever? They find you on social media.
Yeah, so my website is pretty easy to find. It's just my first name, last name, stevenestrada.org. And there you can find out a little bit more about our platform. You can go into what exactly we promote in terms of the specific issues that are impacting Long Beach residents. You can also, if you're in the area, sign up to volunteer, sign up for our newsletter, and even donate. One of the things that I think I explained earlier, we're behind the 8 ball in terms of funding because Mary Zendejas she's breaking records, and if you look down her campaign contributions, it's real estate developer after real estate developer or police unions funding her campaign. So any dollar helps. It helps us reach a worker. So that's very important. But social media wise, Steven Estrada D1. That's for District 1. That's the easiest way to find me. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I like to post my thoughts sometimes. And yeah, that's where we're at right now. So thank you. Honestly, first of all, I just wanted to thank you before we wrap up, just for the work you're doing. I got a chance to see some of the interviews that you both conducted with these progressive candidates, and I was really impressed. So I was very excited to hop on, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, and we got to donate to you too. But yeah, we're really impressed by you too, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll stay supporting you 100%.
All right, thank you both so much. Appreciate it.
It was great meeting you and talking to you, Steven.
Absolutely, thank you.
Bye bye.